A.J. Brown is leaving the Philadelphia Eagles. It's not official yet, but drafting a first-round wide receiver to replace him, signing Hollywood Brown, acquiring Dontavian Wicks, and loading up the receiver room, that's not a team planning for Brown to stay. According to Adam Schefter, the trade to the New England Patriots is expected to come together around June 1st, with a 2028 first-round pick as the return. For Eagles fans, that hurts. But here's the question nobody is asking yet. What does the data say actually happens to the Eagles when A.J. Brown walks out the door? Before we look at what happens next, let's establish what the Eagles are actually losing. A.J. Brown has been one of the 3 best wide receivers in the NFL for the last 4 seasons. He's a genuine number 1 receiver, the kind of target that changes what a defense has to prepare for every single week. Since arriving in Philadelphia in 2022, he's averaged over 1,100 receiving yards per season, caught 67% of his targets, and posted a yards per reception average that puts him in the top tier of receivers in the league. He helped win a Super Bowl. He makes Devontae Smith better by drawing double teams. He gives Jalen Hurts a safety valve on 3rd down that almost no other quarterback in the league has. Losing him is significant. The question is, how significant? We've covered the Eagles twice on this channel already, and both times the data told a story that was more complicated than the record suggested. In the 2025 season, the Eagles went 11-6. They won the NFC East. They looked like a Super Bowl contender on paper, but the point differential was just plus 54. For an 11-win team, that's modest. It suggests a team winning close games rather than dominating opponents. 6 of their 11 wins came by 1 score. That's 55% of their victories decided by a margin that could easily have gone the other way. We said at the time, this is a team that's closer to the edge than the record suggests. The underlying numbers show a team that needs things to go their way. Now remove A.J. Brown. The Eagles' passing game loses its most dangerous weapon. The defense no longer needs to double Devontae Smith because Brown commands the attention. The 3rd down conversion rate, which Brown has been central to, becomes more vulnerable. The point differential was already modest. What happens to it when the number 1 receiver leaves? Here's where it gets genuinely interesting from an analytical perspective. And this is the kind of analysis that most coverage of this story is missing completely. In any NFL offense, there's a target hierarchy, a ranked order of who gets the ball, in what situations, and why. It's not random, it's designed by the offensive coordinator and baked into the route concepts and play calls. A.J. Brown sat at the top of the Eagles' target hierarchy. He was the first read on a significant percentage of passing plays. He commanded attention that freed up every other receiver on the field. When Brown leaves, that hierarchy reshuffles completely. And here's what the data tells us about who benefits and who doesn't. Devontae Smith becomes WR1. This sounds like an upgrade for Smith's fantasy value, and in terms of targets, it probably is. But there's a crucial distinction between being the number 1 receiver on a good team and being the number 1 receiver on a team that's just lost its best weapon. The targets increase. The difficulty of those targets increases too. Smith will face more single coverage, but also more bracket coverage as defenses adjust to him being the primary threat. Makai Lemon steps into a significant role as a rookie. He's the Biletnikoff Award winner, the best receiver in college football last season. At USC, he caught 79 passes for 1,156 yards and 13 touchdowns. He's a genuine talent, but he's a slot receiver, not a boundary WR1. His role in the Eagles' offense will be complementary initially, a dangerous complementary piece, but not an A.J. Brown replacement in terms of the defensive attention he commands. Dallas Goedert at tight end becomes more important. With Brown gone, the Eagles need another receiver capable of moving the chains in critical situations. Goedert's role in the target hierarchy likely increases, which has real implications for anyone building a fantasy roster around the Eagles' offense. And Jalen Hurts, who we'll come back to, faces his most challenging season yet. This brings us to the most important fantasy question of the entire Eagles situation. What happens to Jalen Hurts without AJ Brown? The conventional wisdom is that losing Brown hurts. And on the surface, that's obviously true. Fewer weapons, more defensive attention on Smith, a rookie receiver who needs time to develop. But the data tells a more nuanced story. Hurts' value as a fantasy quarterback has always been driven primarily by his rushing production rather than his passing. In a season where he threw for over 3,000 yards, he also rushed for nearly 600 with 14 touchdowns. His floor is protected by his legs, regardless of what happens in the passing game. The passing game concern is real, but it's not a floor concern, it's a ceiling concern. With Brown, Hurts had the kind of passing weapon that could turn a game in a single play. Without Brown, the ceiling on any individual passing performance is lower. For fantasy purposes, Hurts remains a high floor QB1. The ceiling games become less frequent. In season-long fantasy, that distinction matters less than it does in DFS, where ceiling is everything. The more interesting question is whether the Eagles' new offensive coordinator can design a system that masks the loss of Brown better than most people expect. That's the storyline to watch through training camp. Now let's look at the actual replacement. Makai Lemon is genuinely exciting. The Biletnikoff Award means he was the best receiver in college football last season. That's not a minor distinction. From a film perspective, there are several things that stand out about his game. His route running is advanced for a college receiver. He creates separation through precision and timing rather than pure speed. His 4.4640 is solid but not elite. What makes him dangerous is the combination of sharp cuts, clean releases off the line, and an ability to create mismatches in the slot that defensive coordinators struggle to account for. His hands are reliable, just 2 dropped passes on 79 targets last season. In a scheme that requires precise timing between quarterback and receiver, a receiver who catches what he's supposed to catch is more valuable than his draft position might suggest. The concern is the transition from slot receiver in college to a role in an NFL offense that needs him to do more than he's ever done. Slot receivers in college face fundamentally different coverage than they will in the NFL. More press, more bracket, more disguised coverage schemes. The honest film verdict on Lemon is this: he has the tools to be a very good NFL receiver. Whether he becomes a genuine number one, the kind that commands the defensive attention AJ Brown commanded, is a question that will take 2 or 3 seasons to answer. In 2026, he will be a dangerous complementary piece. That's valuable. It's just not the same thing as what the Eagles are losing. Now for the other half of this story, because the AJ Brown trade isn't just an Eagles story, it's a Patriots story too. Drake Maye is entering his second NFL season as the Patriots franchise quarterback. Last season he showed genuine flashes. The arm talent is undeniable, the pocket presence is developing, the decision making is improving. The one thing he's been missing is a genuine number one receiver, someone who commands defensive attention, someone who can win in single coverage, someone who gives him a safety valve when plays break down. AJ Brown is exactly that player. The target hierarchy argument we made for the Eagles works in reverse for New England. Brown's arrival raises the ceiling of every receiver around him by commanding attention that frees them up. It gives Maye the kind of weapon that accelerates a young quarterback's development. The Patriots are reportedly paying a 2028 first-round pick for Brown. From a surplus value perspective, that's a meaningful price. A future first-round pick is significant capital. But for a team that has Drake Maye under contract on a rookie deal and needs to maximise his development window, acquiring a proven number one receiver while the quarterback is still cost-controlled is exactly the right philosophy. The surplus value of Brown in New England, a veteran receiver on a contract eating into a cap that's otherwise dominated by a cheap quarterback is genuinely compelling. So here's what to monitor between now and the season. For the Eagles, watch the point differential in the first 4 weeks. If they're still winning close games without Brown, the underlying fragility becomes even more pronounced. If the new offensive system generates dominant performances, the transition has worked. For Jalen Hurts fantasy managers, the floor is protected by his rushing. The ceiling is lower without Brown. Target the Eagles' offense in season-long fantasy, but be realistic about peak performances becoming rarer. For Devonta Smith, target share should increase significantly, but monitor training camp reports on how defenses are treating him as the clear number one. More targets with harder coverage is not a straightforward upgrade. For Makai Lemon, he's a dynasty asset more than a 2026 asset. The talent is real. The development curve for slot receivers transitioning to a larger role in the NFL takes time. Be patient. And for Drake Maye, if the Brown trade happens as expected, New England's passing game gets genuinely dangerous. A second-year quarterback with a proven number one receiver is a combination worth watching very closely. The A.J. Brown situation is one of the most analytically interesting stories of the entire off-season, not because of the drama, but because of what it reveals about how NFL offenses actually work. Target hierarchies, route concepts, the difference between a number one receiver and a complementary piece, the surplus value of a proven weapon on a rookie quarterback contract. These are the concepts that separate good football analysis from hot takes, and they're the same concepts that separate good fantasy managers from everyone else. If you want to keep seeing the NFL through this lens, subscribe. And for the deeper weekly analysis every Wednesday, the newsletter link is in the description. We'll be watching how this one plays out. See you next Wednesday.